Well, Allison Weir continued to describe the Zionist invasion of U.S. society, the United States society and its government, in the development of its heavy propaganda mass media machine as preconditions for the success of its wicked agenda. Allison Weir continues. By 1918, there were 200,000 Zionists in the U.S. And by 1948, this had grown to almost 1 million. While Zionists were making major inroads in influencing Congress and the media, State Department officials were less enamored by Zionists, who they felt were trying to use the American government for a project damaging to the United States. Unlike politicians, State Department officials were not dependent on votes and campaign donations. They were charged with recommending and implementing policies beneficial to all Americans, not just one tiny sliver working on behalf of a foreign entity. In memo after memo, year after year, U.S. diplomatic and military experts pointed out that Zionism was counter to both U.S. interests and principles. So we fast forward now till today. So it's fashionable for congresspersons to boldly declare their support for the state of Israel. And most of them campaign with that statement in mind. That's a buzz phrase for any congressperson, whether you're running for Congress or the Senate, campaigning, which opens you up for donations from those groups of Zionists so you can get your political office. It is also fashionable to label someone anti-Semitic for criticizing the Synagogue of Satan. This is what the mass media does today. Once upon a time, it didn't do that. Yet there are few politicians who are crying out against the wicked control of the U.S. government that is sending white, brown, and black youth to war zones to be maimed and killed. Allison Weir continues again in her book, Against Our Better Judgment. But it doesn't appear that the United States government has made good judgments in quite a long time. Continuing. Most analysts consider World War I a pointless conflict that resulted from diplomatic entanglements rather than some travesty of justice or aggression. Yet it was catastrophic to a generation of Europeans, killing 14 million people. The United States joined this unnecessary war a few years into the hostilities, costing many American lives, even though the U.S. was not party to the alliances that had drawn other nations into the fray. This, even though Americans had strongly opposed entering the war, and Woodrow Wilson had won the presidency with the slogan, "He kept us out of the war." Quotes. President Wilson changed course in 1917 and plunged the U.S. into the tragic European conflict. Approximately 270,000 Americans were killed or injured. Over 1,200 American citizens who opposed the war were rounded up and imprisoned, some for years. And they have repeated these shenanigans since that time in every president that has come before the American people. There's always a president pushing for war. And there's always people who oppose it, but they do what the hell they want to do. Because after all, the American citizens in the eyes of Synagogue of Satan is nothing but peasants and subjects and cannon fodder. Now, after describing the satanic schemes that saturated politics and the betrayal of American citizens by their selfish political and military leaders, Alanson Weir states regarding the Balfour Declaration. Diverse documentary evidence shows that Zionists pushed for the U.S. to enter the war on Britain's side as part of a deal to gain British support for their colonization in Palestine. The letter, Balfour, while officially signed by British Foreign Minister Lord Balfour, had been in process for 2 years and had gone through a number of edits by British and American Zionists and British officials. While the Balfour Declaration was a less than ringing endorsement of Zionism, Zionists considered it a major breakthrough because it cracked open a door that they would later force wider and wider. In fact, many credit this as the key factor in the creation of Israel.